Welcome to the Second Bite Podcast, where we talk with top entrepreneurs and CEOs about creating valuable companies through creative transactions. Now, let's get started with the show.
Welcome back to the Second Bite Podcast. My name is Todd Paskey. I'm your host. The Agency Growth Advisor series continues. And in this particular episode, we're going to ask each of our guests, what is a question that the agency founder and CEO should be asking themselves as they prepare themselves for growth? I think you'll enjoy the feedback and hopefully you'll learn a couple of things from each of these guests. Bruce Eckfeldt, what is the best question in your experience that a founder or a CEO can ask themselves to improve their business or their business performance?
So I tend to focus on strategy, and that's because having worked with dozens of these companies on growth, I find that unless we figure out how you're differentiated in the market, how are you going to win, what is your unique positioning, all the other problems are kind of challenges, right? If we can figure out strategy, we can figure out what your positioning is, it's going to help us solve all these things. It's going to help us figure out what is the leadership team you need, what is the operational model you need to focus on? What is the cash model that you're going to put in place? So I tend to start with strategy. And so I'd say, like, how are you different and how are you going to win? Like, if you can figure that question out, that will unlock a lot of answers on lots of other parts of the business.
And how do you know if you've got that right? It's so ambiguous, I guess, is always the knock against strategy, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so and I've struggled with this for a long time in my own company, and then having worked with these companies. How do you develop strategy? It really comes down to three basic steps for me. You have to figure out your core customer, like who is that core customer, and what is the segment that you're really going to focus on, and you want that specific enough that you can paint a pretty detailed picture, but big enough that there's a market there for it. Then you need to look at the competitive landscape. Understanding who really is direct and indirect competitors for your dollars for that problem that your customers have. And from there, you figure out your operational model, right? So understanding what do my core customers want? What does the landscape look like? We'll unlock the white space. We'll understand where is their unmet needs and unmet position in the market. Once I understand that, then I can drive operations to own that space. So if I can figure out those three things, that's strategy for me. And that's something we can implement inside the business.
And do people have that wrong when they come to you, or they just don't even know that that's what they should be focusing on?
So I would say the two typical problems I run into is either they haven't thought about it at all, right? They haven't really thought about what strategy is. In some cases, I've run into people that have decent strategies, but they haven't implemented them. Like they can't figure out how to go from, oh, I've got this idea of how to win in the market to what do we actually need to do on a month-by-month, quarter-by-quarter basis in terms of operations and implementation? And that's where the understanding the operational model and what I call road mapping that out into a quarterly plan is where it really gets played out.
Bruce Eckfeldt, good insights. Thank you. Jeremy Weiss from Rise 25. What do you, in your experience, you work with agencies and with other CEOs and founders. What's one of the best questions that business owners can ask themselves to improve their business and scale?
I'll speak for myself here. What question I'm asking myself is, where are the bottlenecks and what should I stop doing? All right. So, because I'm sure there's things I'm holding the company back with. And so we have what we call, Todd, an intervention meeting. It's every 2 weeks. It used to be every week. The intervention is, by the way, on me. Okay. So it's myself, my business partner, John, and then maybe one or two other staff members. And they're intervening on me on what I should stop doing. And this includes things that maybe even I like doing, but maybe I shouldn't be doing, right? The obvious is we make a list of all the stuff I think that I want to stop doing. And then they also make a list of things that I should stop doing. And my list is more stuff I do not like to do. And theirs will kind of overlap with stuff that I shouldn't be doing, but maybe some of it's like, well, I actually kind of like doing that. Well, I don't care. You shouldn't be doing that. So,
and you shouldn't be doing it because you're slowing down the rest of the company, or because it's not your highest and best use?
Yeah, both. Definitely, first and foremost, not the highest and best use of my time, and I could be spent doing more valuable things for the company. And that, in that I may be holding up the process, or maybe something waiting on me, and I'm like, sometimes I don't see it because I'm too close to it. And I'm like, you know what? I should just hand this to someone else. I don't know why this is taking so long, and it's my fault. So those are two, looking at the bottlenecks for us, and then what should I stop doing? And that kind of goes for a lot of team members. Like, we have a quarterly meeting with the team members to ask them those questions too. So it's not just me. Mine is more frequent. That is, what do you want to stop doing, right? And what should you keep doing, et cetera.
Excellent. Jeremy Weiss from Rise 25. Thank you. Ian Garlick from Video Case Study. From a service perspective standpoint, when somebody comes to you, what question should a founder or a CEO be asking themselves to be successful in growing their agency?
I mean, the number one question that they should be asking themselves is, what's the big problem that we solve and for who? And that's what we help them to really discover through the process, is looking at it, who they are, who they're really serving and what's the problem that they're solving. Because no one wants a website. No one wants video case stories. No one wants YouTube. They want a solution to a problem, and really understand that problem and really understand who you serve inside that problem and their journey, and creating content around that speaks to it and creating stories around that. That's when you're going to win. And the more specific you get with those problems, the better off you are going to be.
And I'm assuming that everybody you work with has those stories. You just help pull them out and articulate those well?
Yeah, we have a whole strategy. We use a thing called a case story tackle box, because what we found is people don't spend any time finding those stories, putting them in one place. I've talked to so many clients that are like, you're great at knowing your stories, but so many clients I've talked to before, I'm like, oh yeah, we have a story. I'm like, where is it? I don't know. Or they don't know the stories. So we have an entire process for digging deep into them, for strategizing and interviewing their prospects, following up with them from soup to nuts, and including the entire marketing strategy of how to use those stories. And like you said, the website is just one place. It's a small fraction of it. YouTube is a big one. LinkedIn is another big one. And Facebook retargeting are just some of the places, plus email.
Do you find that the best stories are more focused on the company and the service that they provide, or the client and the recipient of the service?
100% the client and the recipient of the service. People want to know, is this someone like me? And did they have problems like me? And it's not just the main problem, but like, for example, we are doing this for one big client, a big agency that everyone knows. And we interviewed one of their clients, and yeah, the client wanted more leads and more traffic. But the deeper problem was they wanted to be untrapped from the marketing process so that they could do what they're best at and have someone that they trust completely innovating their marketing process on a constant basis. That's a deeper problem than just leads. And that's the thing that we need to focus on. And not just the numbers. Everyone wants to focus on, a case study. Case studies are boring. That's why we want case stories. We want to tell the story, get those emotions out there.
Excellent. Ian Garlick from Video Case Story. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim Kilroy. What is the best question that a agency founder can ask themselves to improve their agency, both short-term and long-term?
Should I be touching this? Like, really, that's it. Should I be touching this thing, whatever I'm doing right now? Should I be the one in charge of it? Should I be sending out the invoices? Probably not. Should I be reviewing campaign results? Probably not. So it's just, what stuff can I take off my plate? Because as the CEO, you are the only keeper of the vision. And your primary job is to articulate the vision so everybody else understands it.
And Tim, most of the agency guys you work with I think, are between $500,000 of revenue and $5 million of revenue. Do you find at the smaller size, I would imagine at the smaller size, they are touching everything because
Yes.
that's how you get started. Is there a commonality in the things that you try to have people let go of first?
The first rule is, if it's not more valuable when you do it, don't do it. And the thing that I use as a perfect example every time, the invoice is not more valuable. Like, the number does not go up because you send it. And so I really try to focus on taking those value independent things off of their plate. And quite honestly, those are often the things that they hold on to most dearly, because they feel like they're sensitive, or it's cheaper if I do this thing rather than somebody else do this thing.
And that's always the point, right? Isn't it? Almost always that it's cheaper and probably easier, because who's going to do the invoicing for me?
Right. But if you can take that, however long your invoicing takes you, whatever, an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours a month, it doesn't even matter. If you don't have to think about that, what else could you do with that time? You could turn that time into 2 one-on-ones with the most important people on your team. Right?
Point.
And so that's what we're really thinking about, is not the fact that, you save money by doing those things yourself, but you actually cost your agency money. Like, you have a value associated with you. And if you were spending that time value on things that are inconsequential, that's a really expensive way to spend your money.
Yeah, it really is.
Because as the founder, your real currency is attention. The thing that you spend, the only thing of value that you really bring is the attention that you pay to things that need to be fixed. And if you're spending that on, if you're doing that, for invoices, that's a waste of your time.
Tim Kilroy, it's great insight. Thank you. Aaron Levinsat from Agency Alliance. You work with a lot of different size founders and agencies. What's the right question, or a good question, that agency owners should be asking themselves to improve their agency and then to scale their agency?
I think the best question that you can ask yourself if you're in this situation would be, where do I want to go, and how am I going to get there? And those are two questions, but they can be kind of conjoined. So, where am I? Where do I want to go? Where do I want to get with this thing? And what is the pathway to go from where I am to where I want to be? And to have that plan laid out and regularly executed against. That should be your day-to-day, figuring out how to execute that plan and slot in the right people and technology to do that. So those would be the two key questions that I would be thinking and put in front of mind as the leader, owner, founder of the firm.
And then as Agency Alliance, you help people manage that by providing a group and an infrastructure around the founder. Is that right?
Exactly. So it's an infrastructure around the founder that we call, having lived through this, having gone through, having asked myself those questions every day for like 11, 12, 13 years and living through that. It's really what I found was, scaling is really hard. Like, going through that scale journey is like, Game of Thrones, winter is coming hard. Like, it is coming and it is hard. And you need at least 3 things to do it. Like, the 3 things minimum. You need to have other peers, you need to have friends, people that are going through it with you. You need to have a network of people that have already done it, that have had that kind of success. And you need to have the ability to market properly and generate leads on the regular. You need all 3 as necessary conditions to scale. So that's sort of the impetus and how Agency Alliance is structured.
Excellent. Aaron Levinsat, thank you for your insight. Jason Swank from Agency Mastery. What do you think is the best question that an agency founder can ask themselves to help improve their agency and their profitability?
I think the best thing they can ask themselves is, where do they want to go and who do they want to actually do it with? Too many agency owners are accidental, and we started this agency by accident because we knew how to do something cool. And then we were reacting to the market. Until you can get very specific at the things that you love doing, the things that you don't want to do, and you hire the people to do those, and then get very specific on the audience that you need to go after. And how do you become the best in the world for that? That's what will really take you up to the next level.
And so in the early stage, so somebody founds an agency, and maybe this gets to the question of what's the right time for somebody to come and be a part of your mastery. But at the beginning, man, you just take opportunity where they come, you do the job, you serve the people, you're fighting for survival, right? Where do you find guys start to become intentional about that?
Well, in the very beginning, it's kind of like a Vegas buffet, right? Like you got to try out everything. You got to try out the crab legs and the clams and the lobster and the steak. And you're like, ooh, I really like the crab legs, or man, those clams really made my stomach messed up, right? And so you have to kind of weed through everything in order to figure out what are you really good at? What do you enjoy? What can you actually really clearly have a separation between everybody else? It just takes time. Some people take years. Some people are very quick about it. You just got to kind of listen to your gut, look for the signs, and then, just make quick decisions.
Jason Swank, good advice. Thank you. Joshua Johnson from Hydra. What is, in your opinion, the best question an agency founder can ask themselves to really start to improve their agency and their offering?
Yeah, well, I think it depends on what stage the agency is currently at. I think if people are struggling with lead flow and are struggling with sales conversions, then, that's one question that someone should ask themselves is, well, how do we get more prospects into our pipeline, and how do we convert at a higher closing rate? I think too often, we focus on the easier things inside of the business and the things that don't necessarily generate the revenue side of the business. And so for me, one of my biggest recommendations to agency owners is like, hey, does what you're working on throughout the day actually contribute to either new revenue in the business? Does it contribute to keeping revenue in the business, or is it going to expand revenue in the business, whether that's through upsells or adding additional offers for the current client roster you have? And chances are, if it doesn't revolve around those three things, it's probably not the most important thing that you can be working on, because I think everyone's goal in business is to grow. Maybe I'm mistaken in that, but I'm pretty sure everyone wants to grow. And if you're not focused on revenue generating, retaining, or expanding items inside of your business, then chances are you're going to be a stagnant business, right? It's like I'm a true believer that, hey, great systems do make a great agency. But if you're only working on building SOPs and playbooks for your fulfillment team, don't get me wrong, like those things are really important. It should take up a little bit of our time. But the main thing that I think most founders get mistaken is that they go too far into like more of like the operational laden and what we call like stability activities versus constantly pushing on the production lever of we need to generate new revenue for the business. So it is a balance, but I would say 80 to 85% of our activity should be revolving around building, growing, expanding our revenue.
And when you first start working with clients, what percentage of their time as an average do you think is spent in one of those three activities?
Yeah, I would say it's over 15% for sure. So, a lot of times they're working on, their own client work, which is totally fine. Like we understand, like you have to fulfill for clients. That's what is going to retain the business. But what happens is they get this new book of business in. Maybe they sign 3-4 clients in a month, and for them, like that's a decent amount of clients. Well, all of a sudden they stop all the activity that got them that 3 to 4 clients, and then they start on what we call stability activities, which is, well, hey, do I need to hire someone new to help me with the fulfillment side? Do we need playbooks? Do we need standard operating procedures? Let me get inside of the ad accounts, or maybe let's get inside of the creative briefs and actually start doing those things. And then what they do is they neglect the things that got them the clients in the first place. And so when that happens, what we'll typically see is that, hey, we'll see this nice influx in revenue, and then all of a sudden we'll start dropping back down a little bit. And then we kind of go back even. And then all of a sudden they start doing those activities again, right? And so our idea of like, the best scenario for these types of clients that we work with is that, hey, how do we keep the lead generation side on? How do we continue to see conversions come through? How do we keep that systemized, stable, and continuing to provide revenue into the business while you can still work on stability activities? And a lot of it's just prioritization and understanding that, hey, like we can't turn the thing that is generating the revenue for the business off. We got to keep that on. And then on the side, we got to find energy in order to make sure that, hey, we're still fulfilling for clients, because if you're a high churn agency, you're just not going to grow. So it is a delicate balance. But I would say a majority of our clients, when they first start on with us, they probably 30 to 40% of their time is reflected on non-revenue generating items.
Wow. Josh Johnson, great insights. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Second Bite podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.